It's the music recording network.
Out of the shower to the bedroom,
Slip on something fresh.
from the bedroom to the studio.
To react to the best.
If your day is blown, we crank to the morn. Make sure your sub is on while we playing your song.
And it's gonna be on.
We rock 3 channels up here on this YouTube stream, and we always let our subscribers know that they are supreme. Haters stand by cause we so fly. React to the beat cause I'm that guy to move you all night long. Why I tell you what's happening in this song. Music make me crazy, baby, do it for me louder. Viewers know my cross keep on bumping with the song. I'ma make you sweat until they turn the house lights on. After party at the Music Recording Network. It's day 8 in the Diddy case, and today we got a prosecution expert on the stand, a fresh lawyer stepping in for the defense, and a deep dive into what they pulled from Diddy's Miami mansion. Yes, that includes the baby oil and lube.
Finally, you guys, we've got some visuals. I mean, we heard about these 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube like months ago at this point. But now
we're finally getting a look at the courtroom exhibits that show what Homeland Security found when they raided Diddy's spots. Heads up, it ain't looking good. They pulled 31 bottles of 𝗟𝗚𝗡𝗞𝗦 and 25 bottles of baby oil. And that's just from the Miami house.
I guess that means the other 944 bottles must have been collected from his Los Angeles home. So only time will tell. But we do have pictures of what was collected in Miami, and it's paired with Homeland Security agent testimony. He'll talk about, and we'll get into all of this and show you all of the pictures, things that were collected.
We're talking stilettos, party drugs, adult toys, and yeah, more of that baby oil and lube. Every one of these items was tagged as evidence from the federal raids at Diddy's crib in Miami. And just so y'all know, this all went down nearly 6 months before he was ever hit with any official charges. Now you already know the list: racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, coercion, and moving people around to sell the dream. These are the Fed charges Diddy's facing right now, and yep, he's pled not guilty to every single one.
We're still in the government's case, but before we get into all of that testimony, we've got some defense updates too. Today, Diddy added a 9th attorney.
A man named Jonathan Bach just stepped in, and yeah, he's actually married to Alexandra Shapiro, who's already part of Diddy's legal squad.
Remember that name, remember Bach. Stay tuned, we'll hear more about him as this episode goes on.
Let's break down the government's expert witness, Dr. Dawn Hughes. She's a clinical and forensic psychologist, and she's no rookie. She's taken the stand 60 to 65 times in major cases across the East Coast: New York, Jersey, Philly, Connecticut, Virginia. Now, we don't have the official transcripts yet, so I can't quote her word for word, but here's what's been reported. Prosecutors asked, "What will you be covering today?" She said, "Why victims stay and how trauma affects memory." Then they asked, "Did the government hire you?" She said, "Yes." "What's your hourly?" $600 to $6,000 a day in court. Then they asked, "Why would someone stay in an abusive relationship?" She broke it down: psychological ties, deep trauma, layers of fear. That fear, she said, could range from beatdowns to just feeling sick with anxiety. Abuse doesn't have to happen daily for it to break someone down. When they shifted towards sexual abuse, she said it creates extreme psychological fear. "Why can't they just leave?" they asked. "Because of shame, because they feel worthless," she replied. "These people," she said, "are survivors." Then they asked, "What does emotional abuse look like?" She said, "It's making your partner feel like nothing, like trash." Then they got into financial control. Dr. Hughes said abuse can look like cutting off housing, transportation, confiscating laptops. That's when the defense jumped in. Objection, and the judge, 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗞𝗦, said sustained, so she had to backtrack. But we know who she was talking about: Cassie Ventura. Cassie said Diddy would punish her by taking her phone, her passport, her car keys, everything.
I think that's where Dr. Hughes was kind of headed. Now the government goes back and questions, are you familiar with love bombing?
Dr. Hughes explained that this is known as the honeymoon phase, when the abuser floods the victim with gifts and sweet talk to pull them back in. Then the government asked what's the most common way they cope. Dr. Hughes said trying to fix the relationship. That trauma bond keeps them hooked. They don't want to lose the person they love. Then the government asked about personal coping tactics, like pleasing or pacifying the abuser. Dr. Hughes said, it's all done to avoid more abuse. Then they asked, does the survivor try to leave? Dr. Hughes said yes, but it often takes several tries before it sticks. Then the big question, when do they finally speak out? Dr. Hughes said, usually when they feel safe or have psychological support. But even then, their first conversations usually involve downplaying what happened. And Dr. Hughes explained they'll say stuff like, maybe he was drunk, or maybe he had a rough day at work. It's a way to stay attached, but it puts them at more risk. It's not a solution, it's just surviving from one assault to the next. And to me, it sounds like she's saying victims often make excuses, not out of weakness, but survival. Like, he's not always like that, he just snapped. Then she brought up love bombing, something we've all heard about, even outside courtrooms.
Let's actually go to our reporter, crime reporter Elizabeth Milner. She was in the courtroom today, and I want to hear her explain about Dr. Hughes' testimony.
Yeah, we kind of learned a lot, especially for people who may not be familiar with her work or who speak to forensic psychologists necessarily every single day. And so we learned a little bit just from her perspective on just kind of the role she would be providing as far as testimony goes. And so she was going to be touching on points such as why do individuals stay in domestic violence relationships? Why is there this delayed disclosure, and even just kind of recalling memories from traumatic events. And so, when they were kind of establishing the foundation before her testimony, the prosecution just kind of came out forthright and just said that essentially that she was being compensated for her testimony today, $6,000 just to testify, which is a lot of money. I'm not going to lie about that. But as far as just more of just what she was talking about, she was talking just about physical abuse, and when victims are hit, that their reaction normally is fear, and so they sometimes have that pattern of they sometimes have a hard time breaking that pattern. Then she got into physical abuse and how physical abuse, I said physical again, I meant psychological abuse. That psychological abuse is all about threatening physical violence, and that for the most part, victims are kind of walking on eggshells, and these symptoms kind of include depression, PTSD, anxiety. Then she got into sexual abuse and how that is a private harm, and just some of the highest types of traumatic stress go into that, and that a lot of victims actually experience shame when it comes to sexual abuse. She touched base on emotional abuse as well too, and she had said when we when we belittle and demean and put down our partner, that kind of falls into emotional abuse. If you can't talk about what's happening, how can you necessarily get help? She talked about financial kind of constraints as far as why victims may not leave because of financial reasons. And then she had said that you need tangible reasons to leave. So how do you leave if you don't have tangible resources?
Bach asked Dr. Hughes, people aren't one size fits all, right? And Dr. Hughes responded, there are still categories we use. Then Bach said, but you got to listen to each person's unique story, right? And Dr. Hughes replied, I don't separate that from my training. Bach kept pressing. He asked, when you're doing forensic work, you want to gather as much info as possible, right? Dr. Hughes said, yes, if it is relevant. So the defense followed up. You go through police records, witness statements, things like that? Dr. Hughes confirmed, correct. Then Bach asked if she knows about malingering, faking symptoms, and she said, I do.
That's interesting that he brought up malingering or feigning. Interesting. It makes sense from the defense.
Bach followed up with, people can fake emotional reactions, right? Dr. Hughes responded, no, they can't. Then he asked, you haven't reviewed any case-specific details here, have you? And she said, I'm not giving opinions about any one person. He pressed again, you've heard of someone named Cassie, but you don't know what she actually said, correct? Hughes replied, I don't. Bach continued, you've testified before across the river in EDNY, right? She said, yes, and you give the same general answers, even though each case is different. It's to help the jury understand, she said. Then Bach asked, but deciding what's true, that's the jury's job, right? He also brought up, you don't publish any of your findings on the people you've evaluated, correct? She answered, no, it's confidential. Then he said, so I can't double check your experience based on your own data, right?
Let's jump to Elizabeth Milner about this cross-examination.
One of the cool things I would say about the cross-examination is that we got to see Jonathan Bach actually kind of in action for the first time. He's one of Diddy's newest attorneys. I think he makes attorney number 9. And so I was kind of wondering during the cross-examination, because we did get to that before the lunch break, but whether or not these jurors were kind of like, who is this guy and why is he showing up on day 8 of trial? And so I was kind of curious what was going through their mind on seeing this new face today.
Moving on from Dr. Hughes' testimony now, because I know you want to see those exhibits. So let's talk about the first witness of Wednesday.
A Homeland Security agent named Ganon took the stand. His testimony kicked off Tuesday and wrapped up Wednesday morning. He spoke on what was recovered from Diddy's Star Island mansion. So let's pull up some photos. He talked about adult items, including dildos. He also said they found 31 bottles of Astroglide and 25 bottles of baby oil. Then there were several pairs of high heels, all shown in court, plus 3 cell phones hidden in a pair of boots. We'll get more insight from Elizabeth Milner on all that. Inside a Gucci bag, they also found a white plastic bottle containing liquid traces of meth and liquid MDMA. The government asked about pills that had a Tesla stamp. Those tested positive for Xanax, and a $100 bill, it had cocaine residue. When asked, what's this item here? Ganon said it was a dark wooden box, and on the top, it had one word, puffy.
Interesting. And again, you guys, I don't have the transcripts yet because they come out about 2 hours after court is done for the day, and I'm recording right now in the middle of the day. So these are all based on reports from people like our girl, Elizabeth Milner.
Ganon also took the stand to talk about weapons. He testified that a .45 caliber gun was found inside a suitcase. He was even asked to hold up the bullets so the jury could get a clear look. Firearms came up again during cross-examination. The defense asked, Agent Ganon, you're from Florida. Don't a lot of folks keep guns in their homes there? The government objected, and the judge said, rephrase. So attorney Tenny Gergo followed up with, do you personally own any firearms? Ganon answered, yes. And that was it. No more questions from the defense. Now let's toss it back to Elizabeth for a full breakdown of everything we just heard.
Yeah, this testimony is something I myself have been very interested in. And this is no offense to all the witnesses that have been testifying, but I really just wanted to see the physical evidence and see especially what was found in those raids. And so Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent 𝗟𝗜𝗡𝗞𝗦, he took the stand actually yesterday afternoon. And he at first kind of started going over some of the exhibits, especially what was found in the Miami home. And that's the home on Two-Star Island, So they didn't talk about the LA homes or anything like that as far as what was found in that particular home. Really was just focusing on the Miami estate essentially because it's a huge property. And so we found out yesterday that 80 to 90 officers were involved in this search, and a lot of the stuff from today was a little just kind of continuation about everything that was found. So we saw a lot of exhibit photos, and I took, Jesse, a lot of notes because at this point it was just so many exhibits back to back to back to back that you just were so overwhelmed by everything that was found essentially. And so we learned yesterday that there were AR-15s inside the Miami property with the scratched off serial numbers. We saw that there were platform high heels that were 7 inches tall inside this Miami home. There were sex items inside this home found in the primary bedroom closet. Then we got a close up of the red high heels and the sex toys, and then these high heels were actually displayed in front of the jury. So Special Agent Ganon, he just took up the heels, kind of showed them to the jury, then put them back into the evidence box, and then kind of had it with the rest of the evidence. And so they said more than a dozen high heels were actually seized from this property. Then we saw some shoes, we saw some boots in the primary closet, and these were special boots. They were Balenciaga boots that I myself cannot necessarily afford. But inside these boots were 3 cell phones. Diddy didn't have much reaction during this testimony, but it was interesting that these cell phones were found in these Balenciaga boots that were inside the closet. And so we also saw a black Gucci bag that was also found inside the closet, and inside that Gucci bag was pills, a powder substance. There was also eye drops in the bag. And so, you know, that Dr. Seuss kind of story, red fish, blue fish, all that stuff, that was essentially kind of the same thing with pills. And I'm not making light of the situation. There were pink pills, there were white pills, there were yellow pills, there were black pills, there were blue pills, there was a crystallized substance. So inside that Gucci bag, some of the residue found inside actually tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. And then they saw a black straw that was also found in this Gucci bag. It also tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. We saw the Lumify eye drop label, the Lumify eye drop label bottle. So initially, I was thinking these were just regular eye drops, but turns out that these eye drops actually tested positive and contained MDMA as well as ketamine. Then we saw a plastic container top. It had kind of the label on it, DBL wash, and that tested positive for cocaine. It was a lot of stuff, Jesse, that we were seeing inside these exhibit photos. A lot of these were pills, tested positive for MDMA. 3 orange pills with a triangular shape that were referred to or had a Tesla label on them. Those tested positive for MDMA. We saw 6 rectangular tablets. Those tested positive for alprazolam, aka Xanax. We saw more Xanax pills in there. We saw a $100 bill that was rolled up that tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. We saw a blue tablet that tested positive for meth and MDMA. Another blue pill that had the same test results. We saw more Xanax pills. Then we get into the master bathroom and we see more exhibit photos. So we see an exhibit photo of the master bathroom and a close-up of this wooden box. And this wooden box had the kind of inscription on top labeled Puffy. And so we got to see what was inside that box. More clear pills, a crystallized substance in that box, and then these capsules that were called golden teachers. And I was like, what are golden teachers? And they are actually mushroom capsules. And so those were displayed to the jury. We saw Ziploc bags of a purple solid crystallized type of material that tested positive for MDMA, ecstasy, as well as Molly. We see more kind of labels of what was going on inside the home in just different rooms, such as we saw zoomed in bottles of baby oil and Astroglide. The special agent said that he had seized 25 bottles of baby oil and 31 bottles of Astroglide from the home, but he said that there was actually more baby oil and more Astroglide that was found. We saw the master closet, which had this vital honey. They didn't go too much into the explanation of what this vital honey actually is. We saw the layout of the guest house, and then we see a handgun as well too that was in one of the utility closets in a suitcase. It was a .45 caliber handgun. They displayed the handgun in court today, and they also seized the magazine ammunition for this .45 caliber handgun. They displayed this magazine to the jury again, as well as the handgun, and then we saw the box of ammo as well too. So Jesse, it was a lot of stuff, and I'm really just not even scratching the surface of just every single exhibit photo that we saw, but it was just a lot of, it was either a lot of drugs, a few kind of guns, because we had the AR-15s again with the scratched off serial number, something that we had known about for a while now, but it was a lot of stuff, but a very interesting testimony, but not seeing too much really reaction from Diddy when all of this evidence was being displayed in court today.